What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the 1821 Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jackson Meyer, alongside Fernando Sucre. And you might be wondering, who is the sexy guy at the bottom? That is our friend, Kyle Woodring. I know Kyle for about 2 years now. Met him at our high school camp for our church. He's an amazing dude, loves Jesus, and he's just all around fun to be around. Kyle, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I don't really know how I can do better than that. What you just did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Kyle. I recently joined the team. I have or I'm finishing up my degree right now in sportscasting, and sports has been a passion of mine for a long time. I was a former athlete. Uh, Knew I wanted to do something in sports, and so I've been studying that for a while. I do podcasting on my own, and getting into sports writing is something that has a lot of interest to me. So I'm excited to join the team. I'm excited to be able to just have more outlets to talk about sports, and I'm excited to see just what we can build here.
Yeah. Yeah,
For
that's funny,
sure.
right? We were watching that Louisiana game. Fernando's sweating his butt off on the field, and I look at my phone and it's Kyle, and he's like, "Hey, you need more riders?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? Any more hands could be better." Kyle will be helping with Mizzou content, high school content down in the St. Louis area. I know he's pretty knowledgeable about baseball as well, so that could be an avenue for our site. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll do
let's kind of get into it,
some
guys.
criminal stuff, some blues stuff, and then
Yeah.
whatever else is around here. And then I'm up in Columbia almost every week, so
Oh yeah.
Mizzou as well.
Yeah, the Blues, I almost forget about the Blues. I'm not a big hockey guy, so it's easy for that to like go past my mind a little bit. Yeah. Well, we can go ahead and get straight into it, guys. Missouri played a football game, believe it or not, on Saturday against Louisiana. I almost forgot. It was really forgetful. Mizzou beat the crap out of them 52-10, and it was one of the most boring games I've covered in my life. And it was hot, and everyone left at the first half. But Mizzou did win a football game, 52-10. They dominated 4 quarters. Mod Hardy, 22 carries, 250 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Bo Pribula played pretty well through his first pick late in the third quarter, I believe. But overall, really solid game. Did you guys feel like you learned anything? Fernando, I'll kind of let you start what you saw from the field. Um, did you learn anything, or was it just kind of, hey, I expected this?
Yeah, I think that game was, I don't know, it's hard because I hate saying this, but I felt like the game was won before kickoff, and the fact that they had a backup redshirt freshman quarterback, you could already tell that that was going to be a problem for them. I know in the fourth quarter and halfway through the third, honestly, when they benched Pribula and put in the second stringers, you could tell that the mindset was we just need to get out of this game. And Matt Zollers, is that how you pronounce his last name? Uh,
Warriors, I think. Yeah.
he from the press conference, it sounded like Drink did not allow him to throw the ball. He was only allowed to hand off the ball and threw the ball. I think it was like 3 or 4 different times. So I share the sentiment in the sense that, yeah, we were going to win this game. We just got to move on to the next one. And I think the great take I can take from this game is they had a really good start. I think game one and two, they had a little bit of a rough start in the first half, first quarter, and they were able to fix it throughout the game. And I don't know if it's because of the rival, but we were consistently good throughout the entire game. So that's a good sign to me because I feel like every time I watch sports, a lot of the teams I root for or watch, honestly, they always tend to have like a rough start and then they try to clean it up towards the end. But was consistently a dominant performance. Pribula's pick was 100% a force pass, and you can tell that he was not happy with it, and it was more like he forced the play rather than letting the play get to him, if that makes sense. And yeah, my party had 250 rushing yards. An absolute killer. One of his touchdown runs was insane, where like they could not bring him down. And I was in the field, the reaction of the crowd, and honestly, the bench, his own bench, was going wild. So you could tell he has a respect of his teammates. You could tell that they want to rally behind him. And there's this hype of like maybe he can lead the SEC in rushing or maybe college football in rushing. Again, let's do a reality check here, guys. The rivals we played are not ranked teams, so we're about to jump into our first. Well, I guess South Carolina is not ranked, but they were, and I would say the rival difference will be a big jump. So there's that.
Yeah, yeah, no, Kyle, you were busy with personal matters. I highly doubt that they see this, but shout out Deja and Nathaniel. Congratulations. But if you got to saw any of the game, any film you watched, like, did you notice anything or did you hear anything that impressed you from Saturday's game?
So I was really impressed with Ahmad Hardy's performance. I mean, I saw he had 200 yards, 200 plus yards at halftime already. And at the same time, it's tough for me to really take performances like that into account whenever we're playing lower level teams. Like, you know, you always, every win is important, and you never want to count your wins before you get on the field. But Louisiana is kind of one of those games that if you were to, like, that's one of them to do it. You expect to win that game, and you expect to win that game by a lot, and especially considering the strength of schedule that Mizzou has this year. That's a game that you need to win by a lot if you want to have like you want to have any sort of playoff aspirations. But it was a really good game. I think people are not a really good game, but a really good performance by Mizzou. I think a big thing that I got from Bo Pribula is he's almost starting to, and this is just my view of it, he's almost starting to feel the need to play hero ball a little bit too much. And normally he does it with his legs. But I think that pick was kind of like Fernando said, it was a little bit forced, trying to play hero ball a little bit. And that's what came of it. Now, this is his first year starting in college, was a backup at Penn State for a while. So I think that's something you're going to have. But I think as time goes on, those mistakes will be less and less, and we haven't even really seen a lot of them from Pribula yet. So, I'm not losing my mind over
Right.
Bo
Eh,
throwing a pick in a 52-10 game, but
right.
as long as he can understand that that's not something he necessarily has to do all the time and doesn't make those mistakes against, teams like we're going to be playing an SEC gauntlet pretty soon, South Carolina, down the line we have Alabama, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. As long as he's not making those mistakes against them, I think it's not a big deal.
Great, and I think to your point on the strength of schedule, it's like a double-edged sword where like yes, it's easier than most teams, but then the margin of error is very, very small. So I think with this schedule, I don't think we can afford two losses to make it to the playoffs. I think we can afford at a max one, just because of how weak our strength of schedule is. So that's the difficult part. And I think when uh, in my opinion, Drake's mindset is okay, the easier teams or the lower level teams, I guess to say that better, are going to be the ones where we're going to clean up any kind of work that we need to do. I felt like game one, they had issues at the left tackle where Hayden Green struggled with the footwork aspect of it. I don't think he's completely like perfect, but he's gotten a lot better. And I think the D line was left a lot to be desired, but that had obviously in the Louisiana game that has been cleaned up. And I think the running game, it's been sensational. So in my mind, I think about during when he faces that SEC gauntlet, he's like, okay, we need to have everything properly oiled, ready to go, and have the very best version of Mizzou that we can offer on those games. And I was telling Jackson the other day off camera, what I love about Pribula is like we were aware of his talent, but his ability to make correct decisions is what I really like. Brady Cook is the son of Missouri, the son of St. Louis, whatever the case. And as great as he was, he lacked decision making on when the game got tough. And I felt like Pribula has shown how to recover from his own mistakes. And I felt like Brady Cook has not did not learn that in his time in Mizzou.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Bo comes from a really strong, like a really good, a really well coached program. I'd expect nothing less from him, and him coming over from Penn State was something that I was really excited about for a reason, and he's been showing that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a couple things to break down there. Obviously, Pribula's interception, it was weird, watching from the press box. It was like a slant concept threw into kind of double coverage, just like tight window. And I think he was trying to make this spectacular throw. And it wasn't horrible, but the linebacker definitely did make a good read, tipped the ball in the air, caught it, pick, right? The first one was gonna happen. I mean, Drink said in the press conference, he said, "Hey, it's better you get it out now, right? Like, let's not be doing that against South Carolina, A&M, Bama, whoever's on the schedule. You want to get it out then." Um, and also, just a question for you guys: we kind of brought the O line and like their struggles, and they definitely had their struggles. Allowed 2 sacks, but do you guys know who the top two rated offensive linemen in PFF were last week?
I
Any
don't.
takers? Hayden
My-
Green and Keegan Trost, the left tackle and the right tackle in the country. They were the highest
Wow.
rated. So, which is kind of crazy because obviously the Missouri offensive line has been shaky at times, but they have been pretty good, right? Like, and I think a lot of fans kind of notice that, but there's these little lapses that they have, and that should worry people a little bit because here's the thing: when you play South Carolina, they're going to be sending heat, and Dylan Stort's a game wrecker. And we're about to talk a little bit about South Carolina and what they're good at. But you can't have those lapses versus South Carolina. You can't get Bo Pribula getting hit 6 times in one game. You got to keep him a clean pocket and allow him to use his legs if possible. But we'll kind of get into it. I mentioned it, South Carolina night game this week, 6:30 on ESPN was potentially going to get game day, and then South Carolina decided, you know what, let's lose by 24 to Vanderbilt, and let's also have Lenora Sellers get injured in the second quarter of the game. So that was really cool, right? We were hoping for game day, and uh, just didn't get it. Right now, they're going to go watch DJ Lagway throw 4 interceptions in Coral Gables. So that's also really cool. But this is a big game for Mizzou, right? We talk about what does Mizzou have to do to make the playoff? It's win the games you should win, and this is a game they should win. And I'm not saying it's a gimme, but this is the game that you would expect Mizzou to win based off how both teams are playing, what they've shown, what the metrics look like. I'll start with you, Kyle. Kind of like looking at both teams. Do you think there's any kind of things that worry you about South Carolina? Things they do well that are going to be hard for Missouri to cover?
Well, I think kind of what you were saying with this is a game that it kind of feels like you should win, and like this is a game you need to win. That's kind of how I've been feeling right now. I think Mizzou is an 11-point favorite, looking at the betting odds, but kind of something that you mentioned whenever you were talking about the game last week is I think this game is going to be won in the trenches. And that is that's always something that I feel. And that's something that does kind of worry me because I didn't know that both of our tackles were, you said the two top offensive linemen last week. That's promising. You hope you can build something off of that. But I believe from last year, Mizzou's lost 3 starting offensive linemen or
I
something.
believe so. Membu, Bryant, and I'm probably forgetting someone there,
Yeah.
but those guys especially.
And having a guy like Membo on the blind side is something that is really, really helps this offensive line last year, and I think they're kind of missing him a little bit. Obviously, Caden Green is still figuring things out, learning how to be a starter, learning how to do all these things, and he's hopefully, like you said, hopefully he's finding something to build off of. In terms of what South Carolina can do, it does look like Lenora Sellers is going to play this upcoming week. And that's you always have to pay attention to what he can do because he's a great athlete. He's a good quarterback. I don't know if I necessarily buy into the hype as much as a lot of other people do. But at the end of the day, this team got their hype in the preseason for a reason. And even though they're not ranked now, they are still a team that can get you if you don't prepare like they're a ranked team. And
Yeah.
with Fernando saying that we can probably only afford one loss, I agree. And I don't think South Carolina is the team you can afford that loss to with Bama coming up. And Bama's not what they have been the Nick Saban era right now, but they're still a really good team. And if you're going to lose one game, you'd like to be able to still have that in the chamber against them or against a really good Texas A&M team.
Yeah. Yeah. It depends on, I was writing this on the offensive breakdown for South Carolina. The defensive one will come up tomorrow. This game hinges upon Lenora Sellers' availability. I think if Luke Doty gets announced as the South Carolina starting quarterback, if you're Missouri, you should win that game by 2 touchdowns or more. There's no excuse. Luke Doty, hats off to the dude. He's been in college since World War II, but he's athletic, but he's not great. Okay, he's no Lenora Sellers. And Lenora Sellers might be a tad underwhelming so far this year, I think would put it best, but he's very talented. And he is good for 2 or 3 explosive plays in a game that can change a game. So I think Lenora Sellers' availability completely changes this, right? Because I'm not saying South Carolina would have beat Vanderbilt with Lenora Sellers. I don't buy into that. I seriously think Vanderbilt's a really good football team. They're really hard to prepare for. And they showed that last year when they played Missouri at home, and Missouri barely scraped away. But I think Lenora Sellers playing gives South Carolina a much better fighting chance than if he doesn't. And that's stating the obvious, but you want your star quarterback, and I think he's going to play. So I think fans can't mark this up as Missouri's going to win this game. It's South Carolina, and they've, barely beat Virginia Tech. Okay, whatever. That was week 1. So that's another thing, but I do think Missouri should win this game. But Fernando, do you have anything to add on kind of what you see out of Missouri and how they match up with South Carolina this week in SEC play?
Yeah, I think where my attention is in that game is going to be Mizzou defense against South Carolina offense. That's where, I guess, in my mind, is where the game is going to be decided. Assuming Sellers plays, I think it's going to be our ability to create pressure on him. And I don't know. My idea is, especially in college, when you have a running quarterback, I've always felt like the best way to defend them is making them uncomfortable in the pocket and forcing them to make bad decisions. And to me, that's the playbook on Sellers. Create enough pressure that would allow him to make bad decisions. And I think from the underwhelming type of play that he's had this season, because there was a lot of, well, and I guess by this season, I mean only 2 games. He's been, excuse me, 3 games. He's been slightly underwhelming, and there's a lot of hype, like, well, he could be a Heisman candidate. And I don't know, maybe this is just me and ignore this, but because we had that SEC documentary on Netflix, South Carolina is cool now because they had a whole bunch of episodes that they feature them, and there's more exposure with them. So I think in my mind, I'm not, and I guess in my mind, I'm not worried about the offense, and I think it goes back to Pribula's leadership and ability to make good decisions, and I think he can figure it out figure things out. And I think pressure is not the answer with him. Like, because if they're gonna send the house on Pribula, he has a lot of options to respond to that, and I don't think he's gonna fall apart. And I don't think I can say the same thing about Sellers. That's my mind. That's what I'm looking at in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point, right? Like Bo Perbula, like really the game that you look at to see how Bo Perbula handled competition and kind of a crazy atmosphere would be Kansas. I mean, that's the biggest game of the season for Missouri. It doesn't matter if Kansas is 2-9 the rest of the year. It doesn't matter. That's your biggest rival. Like that's the game that everyone points to. And Bo Perbula had a fantastic game. But now it gets real, right? You start playing them SEC caliber D lines, you get into conference play. We haven't seen Bo Perbula in conference play yet. I think Bo Perbula has been a top 5 quarterback, arguably, in the SEC so far. But we really need to see what we see out of him. We need that to continue in SEC play to see, okay, is this guy as advertised? So I guess we'll find out on Saturday. That's why you play the game. Um, and obviously, Lenora Sellers, I think, is going to be just fine if he plays, especially. I mean, the guy's experienced, he's got plenty of athleticism. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the game plan for Missouri, I think they're just going to give Ahmad Hardy the ball. Feed him, feed him, feed him, feed him. Like the South Carolina D line, apart from Dylan Stewart, isn't amazing. There's not much to write home about on that D line. Um, and I don't think it's particularly stacking up well with Missouri's O line. So we're gonna find out. I think they're just gonna feed him on Hardy, but that would be me if I was a coach. If I had him on Hardy, I'd be like, here's the ball 40 times, have fun. So I guess we'll find out, but um it's gonna be a good one. Night game, blackout. It's gonna look super good. Originally they did a whiteout, and I'm like, guys, we're not Penn State. This is not Penn State. What are you doing? But anyways, score predictions. We'll get straight into it, right? I think that's kind of covers it. Kyle, give me your score prediction for this game. What do you think?
I'm going to predict a 38-27 win for Mizzou.
Fernando?
I think I'm gonna do 30-21 Mizzou. I think South Carolina is gonna start a little hot in the first quarter, and then we're gonna slow them down with the signature Bo Pribula 10-minute possession for a touchdown, slow down the whole South Carolina offense, and then we take over the game, take control over the game.
I like that. I'm going 27-24 Mizzou. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think. These games are weird. If you guys don't know the history, pretty sure it was 2017. Missouri basically played in a hurricane in South Carolina. And last year, Missouri lost with 15 seconds to go on the clock. It's going to come down to a field goal. I think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. It's a weird feeling I got, and I'm going with the hunch there. 27-24 Mizzou, but I could see it going either way. I really
We don't have
could.
a kicker. Jackson, we
I
don't have a
know.
kicker. It better not be
Well,
by a field goal.
inside the 30
We got
yard.
4 of them. Drink just doesn't trust any of them.
No, 4th and 10 on your own 31. We're going for it. So, yeah. Let's get into a little bit of a fun segment here because this is the segment where I get to make fun of Fernando, even though my team lost 30-10 to the Buffalo Bills. Fernando, what is happening to the Kansas City Chiefs? Like, what are you making of this start, and how are you dealing with the discourse online about, oh my gosh, the Chiefs are done for? No, we're not. We're gonna win the Super Bowl. How do you feel about that? Where's your head at?
I have this theory, and this is my coping mechanism. So by theory, I really mean coping mechanism. Andy Reid likes to stand back the first half of the season, and then towards the second half, he's like, "All right, let's start playing ball because we don't want to show our hand." Because if you show think about this, the Bills start super hot, they're looking phenomenal every year, and then towards the end of the year, they lose the big games. Why is that? I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to realize that there's tape on them. So if there's tape on them, they're gonna be able to figure them out. So my coping mechanism is Andy Reid knows that, so we're not giving anybody tape, and we're gonna start playing ball the second half. No, but seriously, okay, so I really think to
I
be
was about to
serious,
chime in on that. I
to
was
be
about to
serious,
chime in on that, and then you said, "I'm kidding." I was like, "Okay."
but am I?
I
No.
don't know.
No, but I think we're having issues with our offense. Obviously, we have Xavier Worthy was injured by Travis Kelsey, and then good old Rasheed Rice is serving his suspension. So I really think at this moment they're making the best that they can with what they have available. I think Thornton. I don't know, like what you guys think, but I feel like anytime we draft wide receivers or like really young receivers, it takes them about 6 to 7, like, takes them half a season to get to the level, to like a really high level. Felt like last year, Xavier Worthy took about the second half of the season to like really see him going full steam, like the level we wanted him to be. Right now, Thornton is one of those guys where he's like off by a step or two with Mahomes connections. So I really think he's gonna develop a lot more. The good news is we're playing the Giants, so that has to be a we have to win that game. Like we need to be 1 and 2 right now. I will say we started with two really hard games. The Chargers are looking phenomenal. Uh, Justin Herbert, I almost had Philip Rivers. Somehow they seem to be exactly
That's
the
really
same
not
player.
fair. Yeah.
No, no, but we played in a different country, so that's really hard to get used to. And I think the issues that we had in game one got fixed in game two. Like issue number one was the O line had a lot of issues, and they're not 100% healed. I think they're gonna be healed the second Juwan Taylor gets out of that team because we keep getting offsides for the same issue. But I think the left tackle position looked a lot better. The defense, honestly, I think from game one to game two, they fixed everything that they had wrong, and they had a phenomenal plan against Jalen Hurts. And I think they took advantage of the fact that they had a brand new OC against Philly, and those games are so close. It's really hard to like figure things out. I think my first reaction after the game ended, blaming it on Travis Kelsey's drop, uh, was a did it turn out to be a pick, almost a touchdown? It did. But there were other things that happened throughout the game. I believe there, if I remember correctly, there was a missing field goal, so that could have been a tight ball game. There's a couple of missing shots, and I don't know about you guys, but when your team loses, you start playing the tape back in your head, and you're like, all right, what are some things we could have done different? And that's some of the things I think about. Overall, I think we're fine. Think I could see us having a 11 and 7 season, maybe a couple road games in the playoffs, and that's fine. We did that the year that we beat the Niners in Vegas, so we should be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Chiefs will be fine. I mean, they're the Chiefs. You have to think they're going to be fine because they've proven it over 5 years. I will say this boggled me watching this game. You know, there's 3 minutes left. It's 10-20, and Andy Reid finally dials up a deep ball to Thornton with 3 minutes left on the clock. And I'm like, where was this the entire game? Where was that? Now you let Mahomes throw. This guy's got an absolute cannon, and you're waiting until 3 minutes left in the game. And you're like, there you go, Patrick. Tyquan Thornton's down there somewhere. Uh, I don't get it.
I think it's a risk management issue for them because it was a low scoring game, and some of it is I think Andy Reid wanted to control the clock of the game and did not want to give the ball back to Philly. And if all you're doing is throwing bombs down the field, then you're not chewing the clock as you want to be. And I think there's some of that, but when you're down 10 with 3 minutes left, you gotta throw the rock. I get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But like, here's the thing though, right? chewing the clock is one thing, managing the game is another, but the Kansas City defense is good enough to where you don't have to worry about chewing a ton of clock and keeping your defense off the field. Like Kansas City's defense has been a top 10 unit for 5 years. And not a lot of people know because they're like, oh my gosh, Patrick Mahomes, like rightfully so. The guy's amazing, but their defense is phenomenal. Like Steve Spagnuolo, like not necessarily revolutionized, but just reshape that defense from what it was prior. I mean, it's kind of crazy the turnaround they had and just how consistent they've been. But I think the Chiefs are going to be fine. Kyle, do you have any thoughts? Like anything you saw from the Eagles game? I know you weren't here for the Chargers game either, so if you have any thoughts on that,
Yeah,
feel
so
free.
I think right now the Chiefs are. I agree. I think the Chiefs are fine, and I think there are a few little things that happen in each game that is the difference between the Chiefs being 0-2 and the Chiefs being 2-0. I have screamed from the rooftops that I fully put the Chargers' loss on Andy Reid because I think he abandoned the run way too quickly. When you look at Isaiah Pacheco's
I
number
agree.
game, he had 5 yards per carry, but he only had 5 carries in that game. Kareem Hunt, he only had 5 carries in that game. You cannot have Patrick Mahomes as your leading rushing, the person with the most rushing attempts on the team. And whenever you're throwing the ball this much, and by the way, I don't understand why it's so evenly split in the carries between Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt. Because Isaiah Pacheco, I know you're trying to keep him healthy, and I know he is such an aggressive runner. He's still just as explosive as he has been, and I think he's still very capable of being a lead back in the NFL. Now, last week they started to run the ball a little bit more, and they didn't get a whole lot going because they played against the Eagles, who have one of the best front sevens in the NFL. So I wouldn't really put a whole lot on that. I still think they need to continue to run the ball, and that will open things up for Mahomes, and that will make it a lot easier for the passing game because you need to do that right now without Rasheed and without Xavier Worthy. And then in terms of the Eagles game, I mean, it's tough whenever Travis Kelce hands the ball to the other team, and whenever I'm not a Chiefs fan, but on my podcast, I'm working with a Chiefs fan, and he is pissed about the whole false start thing on the tush push. I think he has a gripe there. The entire offensive line are already in the Chiefs' territory whenever they're doing these tush pushes, and I think both of the tush pushes in that game would play a big impact. Would they stop it? I don't know. The Eagles are magic when it comes to that, but I think that could have played a big role in that game. Also with Juwan Taylor, he's got to figure something out because he's jumping off sides, or he's jumping a lot and he's holding a lot. But whenever he's not, he is truly a great tackle. Like he grades out really well in run blocking and in pass blocking, but he is a net negative to the team right now with all the penalties that he causes. I don't think
And,
we're going to be
and
seeing him getting cut until at least in the offseason because they still have another 2 years on this contract and at least $20 million guaranteed. But I think basically what I have to say is the Chiefs are fine. I did predict them to not have a bye this year, but that's just because the Bills and the Ravens are so good. I think I still expect them to finish 11-6, maybe 12-5, 10-7 at worst.
yeah, and on the Juwan Taylor thing, it's insane to me because he's been struggling with the same exact false start thing for 2 straight years. I remember when that became an issue in that Ravens season opener, and he has not fixed that since. And I'm just thinking
And it was
like
never a thing. It was never a thing with him in Jacksonville. It was never a problem. And now with the Chiefs, it's a problem. I don't know how it happens, but I mean, like I said, he's still a great tackle. He just needs to fix that, like fix the penalty issues.
Have you guys seen the like how DeAndre Hopkins apparently is playing phenomenal with the Ravens, and I've been reading chatter on X about how like how come you didn't do this in Kansas City or whatever, and I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, 100%. He had an ugly drop in the dang Super Bowl, and now he fast forward to now, and he's making phenomenal plays for Baltimore, and I'm just like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've been seeing that too. It's really funny. I'm like, the guy went from obviously, like you said, making that drop in the Super Bowl to making one-handed catches consistently with Lamar Jackson. So who knows? But yeah, I mean, with the Jawan Taylor thing, like I think Jawan Taylor's gonna be fine, but he absolutely cannot keep getting these penalties. Because watching the Chiefs, like it's crazy. They'll be a 2nd and 10, and then immediately you're at a 2nd and 15 or a 2nd and 20, and penalties kill teams. I mean, good teams don't get penalized often. Good teams are disciplined, especially good players. So Jawan Taylor's got to figure that out if the Chiefs want to start consistently winning games. Because me and Fernando talked about this week one, Kyle. Like everyone in the NFL got better, and I cannot say confidently the Chiefs got better, right? And here's the thing: you cannot continue to rely on, hey, we're going to win these 2 or 3 point games. You're just not. You're not going to be that lucky all the time. And you're not going to win these close games every single game like they did last year. So they've got to figure out something because they cannot keep teams in arm's length and then hopefully win the game at the end. That it's beyond me. You have the best quarterback in the league. I watch Justin Fields on a weekly basis. And then I go from watching Justin Fields to Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, holy moly, like, this guy's insane.
Well,
So,
I'll say this though, like I don't know why, but the AFC West every preseason or right before the season started, every single team looks amazing, and then somehow they're not even half as good as you thought they would be. This year, I'll say the Chargers have sort of beat that curse, but the Raiders with that terrible Monday Night Football loss, I think the Raiders are still the Raiders. And then Denver does not look as great as people hyped them up to be, losing to Indy, and then they barely beat, who was it, Tennessee. So they don't look as great as I thought they would be. So I don't know. That's the other part too. Like, there's all that hype about like every team is 0 and 0. Every team has a chance to win the Super Bowl, but then I don't know how, but every year the AFC West self-destruct. So on that end, that's the only thing. But again, I'll say this year the Chargers somehow beat their odds, and they I think they have taken a step forward for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and
You wanna know what's
I've been
funny?
saying
You're good.
I've been saying this whole time. I think the AFC West this year is probably the second best division in football. I probably only put the NFC North ahead of it, but I do really think the Broncos have looked up and down in their first 2 games. At the end of the day, I don't think you can discount that defense. Bo Nix kind of looks like he's on a little bit of a second year slump, but I do think he'll break out of that. The Raiders are the Raiders. But Justin Herbert looks like the quarterback that I think we all know he is. And
Mhm.
if he can take control of a game like we know he's capable of, then the Chargers are going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. You know what's funny too? I was looking at these fantasy stats. Now I'm in a couple leagues. Quentin Johnston, where did he come from? Like, that guy was clowned on for
It's
dropping every ball,
it's
and he's
fool's
on
gold.
my bench. He's
It's
on my
fool's gold.
bench.
Don't buy it.
Yeah.
Fool's
It's
gold.
it's wild, man. Like, the dude just breaks out of nowhere, and then I'm gonna put him in my starting lineup this week, and he's probably gonna score like 2 points. But
Him and Kyle Pitts, and there's one other guy that is kind of in that same. I'm starting to think Keon Coleman is probably going to be in that same boat.
yeah,
I think all of them are going to have one game that makes you believe, is this the year? And then they turn into a pumpkin by week 5.
Yeah, yeah,
Years ago, I don't know if you guys remember the receiver Ed Ginn Jr.
Mhm.
That was my player where like out of the 16 games of the regular season, he had he had like 2 games that he was amazing, and I started him in the other 14 games.
yeah.
It was a great return, man. That just doesn't really help you that much in fantasy unless he gets
Well,
in the.
he would have like 2 receptions for 90 yards, and I would think like, "Oh, this is a great pickup." Not.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, in a synopsis, right, the Chiefs are fine. They're gonna be fine. And they're probably gonna win 11 or 12 games. I think we're all gonna agree on that. I think we're all gonna say the Chiefs are fine. Everyone needs to calm down. The room is not on fire. The Chiefs are fine, right? The Jets may not be, unfortunately for me, but the Chiefs are fine.
Hey,
So,
it feels really good being a Packers fan right now.
oh my gosh, they
Look,
look so good. So good. Jordan Love they made the right decision with that. I'm just saying.
yeah, that Thursday night football game, Jordan Love looks so smooth, and his wide receivers are amazing. All I keep thinking is like, I wonder how Aaron Rodgers is feeling right now. Is he pissed or is he? I don't know. Not even thinking about it.
He's probably on an island on his own right now, trying to get through this season so he can retire and hope they make the playoffs just
Yeah.
so he can say he's not washed.
He's probably eating some cayenne pepper and some water, fountain of youth,
I'm
according
getting
to him.
close. I'm getting close to investing in a Micah Parsons jersey, though. Let me tell you what.
Probably should.
But
He's
that
a
guy,
pretty good football player. I don't know
that
what
guy's a
gives me that
baller.
impression.
Yeah, that guy's a baller for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, but moving on a little bit, obviously, that kind of sums up the Chiefs. They're going to be fine. They're probably going to beat the Giants by 40. Um, Columbia High School football. I know that some of us might not be as knowledgeable. Kyle is from the St. Louis area, so he's not as familiar with Columbia. But guys, Hickman and Battle play this week. Okay, and I'm not going to bore you with a ton of stats here because I don't know all the stats. But Hickman is going to be Battle by 60. All right, this is a rivalry game. You're going to feel a lot of hatred there, but Battle is where I went to school in 2021. They genuinely might be one of the worst teams in the state. I don't understand what happened to them, right? They won district championships when I was there, changes of coaching, and now they suck. Right. So that's going to be a fun game. Hickman beat Cap City on Friday last week. Capital City is pretty good. They do that weird triple option offense, inspired by um, Army, Navy, Air Force, all these service academy teams. So, yeah, that's my little short tidbit. Okay, Rockbridge also plays this week, and Rockbridge is going to beat who they beat. So,
Love and hate that triple option because I when I was in high school, I played on a triple option of like fully triple option team. If we threw the ball 5 times in a season, then that was a lot.
yeah, yeah. I
Kyle,
don't know if I've seen this much, but with Capital City, what they would do is they would go in their huddle, right? They would go in their huddle, and then as soon as the play was communicated to everybody, they would run to the line of scrimmage and immediately get the play off. It was nuts. Like I haven't seen that. And I was like, that is so strange. And it was so effective though. I mean, they probably got 3 or 4 yards of carry. And if you get 3 or 4 yards of carry every play, guess what? New set of downs every single time. And they would take off like 10 minutes of the clock every single drive. And it wasn't until Hickman took the lead, thank you to, Braden Bursey, um, giving them the lead on that 4th and 5. But once they got the lead, Capital City started to have to throw the ball. And then you're like, oh, that's why they don't throw the ball. So that was pretty funny. But Fernando, did you have a thought?
no, I was gonna say, Kyle, you're doing a lot better than me. I used to have this theory that people that like to watch sports or talk about sports tend to not be good at actually playing the sport. But Kyle, looks like you got the best of both worlds. Because personally, I was awful at any sport, but I would obsess about watching the games. I wouldn't. I would with baseball. I would know ERAs by heart. I would know how many homers and RBIs a certain player had. But if you put me in a on a diamond, I would be awful. I would have no idea what I'm doing.
I like to think I was pretty good. Whether or not that's true is up to interpretation. But I I was that same way when I was younger. I kind of started to figure it out late middle school, going into high school.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that means we have to have a Kyle Woodring huddle highlights episode. So we're just going to break down Kyle's huddle highlights for about 10 minutes and we'll determine if he was really good or not.
We
Okay.
don't need.
We don't need that. But
Um, but yeah, I will also be covering some high school sports around here. Uh, I this weekend I plan on covering CBC and DeSmet, which that's a really fun game. CBC and DeSmet have both been some of the better schools in the country over the past few years. CBC just came off of a 64-7 win against Chaminade, and they're 3-0. DeSmet is actually having a down year this year, but that's always a big rivalry. So I don't really get to delve in that much to St. Louis high school sports because I'm over on the Illinois side of the river, but I'm excited to get into that as well.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend. I mean, Hickman and Battle, CBC to Smet. There's plenty of fun high school games. I mean, high school in Missouri, especially football wise, is a little underrated, in my opinion. I think there's some really good programs here. There's usually some pretty talented kids coming out. Obviously, Jackson Cantwell over in Nixa, you know, that's the big name that everyone thinks about. And there's plenty of kids in the Missouri area that are very talented, especially in the St. Louis area. It's where Luther Burden came from, so everybody knows that name.
East
But
St. Louis. He
yep,
was an Illinois kid. All
yeah,
right.
East St. Louis, same thing. Close enough. All right, just add the East. All right, but yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting year for high school football so far. Been interesting for Hickman, so it'll be fun to cover them. They're kind of on the rise. They were really bad for like 5 or 6 years. Like there's no other nice way to put it. But now they're starting to be good because Justin Conyers is coaching that team, and Conyers has coached at Battle in Hallsville, won a state title at Battle, and he was close to winning one in Hallsville. So he's won everywhere he's gone, and he's showing that at Hickman. But I think that about wraps it up, guys. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about. I know we've kind of talked about Missouri, the Chiefs, high school football. Is there anything else you guys want to add?
I'd just like to say I can't wait for the Cardinals season to be over so I can start to I can I can start to write about, oh well, maybe they'll do things and they'll be good in 2026. Delusional Cardinal fan stuff.
Listen, Kyle.
You'll be getting a lot of that in this offseason.
Listen, Kyle. Like I was talking to a buddy of mine, and when they made the announcement that Mo was stepping out after this season, I thought I called it from the beginning. All right, so we're gonna have a below 500 season. We're gonna have a terrible season, and I'm baffled by the mediocrity the team has had. Kyle, I'll share a link with you afterwards, but I wrote an article about the poor ability that the St. Louis Cardinal management has had on retaining or properly evaluating talent in their ballpark in their team. It was one of the I started having this theory when the Rays made it to the World Series. I don't think they won. They had Randy Arozarena,
Yep. Those
and he was part of the St. Louis Cardinals organization. And then they had two players when the Rangers won the World Series. They had two Cardinal players they didn't that at some point they were part of the Cardinals. And then famously last year, the NLCS MVP Tommy Edman was part of the St. Louis Cardinals. And then I started like obsessing about it, like any baseball fan would. And I started seeing this list of players. None of the guys that Mike Schild brought up from AAA to the bigs has stayed in their roster. And then I'm blanking out on the current manager's name. About half of those guys,
Ollie Marmol.
Marmol. about half of those players are still in the roster, maybe a little bit less than half. So it's like this uh complete problem with evaluating talent. Like I don't know if it's the manager, I don't know if it's a scout, but
It's
something has
it's
to change.
it's the front office. I'm a less delusional Cardinals fan than a lot of other Cardinals fans. I think Ollie Marmol has done a really good job with what his job is in terms of being an on-field manager. And I don't know if I'm going to do it before the season ends or if I'm going to wait till afterwards, but I plan on writing an article pretty soon on what is next for the St. Louis Cardinals after another lost season. But I'm excited to do that because hopefully that will be a sign of good things to come. Hopefully
Yeah.
I can will something good into existence.
Yeah.
I have a fantasy management staff. So hear me out, and I'm gonna write an article about this. I would love Yadi Molina to be our manager, Albert Pujols to be our batting coach, John Jay to be my bench coach, and maybe I will regret saying this, but Wayno as a pitching coach. Because here's the thing, I went on this like dark hole of like learning useless stats, and our current pitching coach does not have does not have zero experience as a major league baseball player. And then I started saying, okay, so is that a normal thing? And I went through the list of like at least 3, 4 teams. All those guys have pitching coaches that have professional major league baseball experience. So that tells you how mediocre we are.
Yeah, it always depends. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it isn't. A lot of times the best players don't always turn out to be the best coaches. Uh, I I'm like I said, I'm pretty content. At least I'm at least content with what Ollie's been doing. If they fire him, then it is what it is. Um, I just don't know if that is going to be it's going to turn out how people necessarily want it to. Because I don't know if Heim Bloom is necessarily going to be the kind of guy to be like, oh, well, we have to have Albert Pujols or we have to have Yadier Molina as the manager. And if we do, and we start underperforming again, I don't want a legend like that to be looked at negatively for their
Fair.
managing experience when they're two of the
Yeah.
great players in franchise history. But my Cardinal rant's over. That's just me being sad.
I hear you,
Yeah.
Kyle. I'm with you.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, guys, I think that's about all we have. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the 1821 Sports Podcast. Be on the lookout for our website, 1821sports.com. Gonna have plenty of content going up. Obviously, gonna have the defensive preview for South Carolina going up tomorrow. Gonna have a Hickman article as soon as that game ends on Friday, as well as the South Carolina preview. And then we're also gonna have a post-game recap on Saturday after the South Carolina game. So there's going to be plenty of content this week to be on the lookout for. Obviously, very excited to add Kyle to the team. He's going to be at the game with us on Saturday. So, with that, guys, I am signing off. If you guys have anything else to say, you can add it now. Forever hold your peace.
And see you guys.
I think I'm
All
good.
right. Have a good night, y'all.